Have you ever gotten your car repossessed? Are you in the position to where your car may be getting ready to get repossessed, behind on payments, don't know what to do, don't know what to say, don't know who to reach out to, want to keep your vehicle, want to get rid of your vehicle, want to know your rights, responsibilities, what they can't do to you? Well, this is the video that you're going to watch, because I'm going to talk about auto repossessions. I'm going to talk about if you want to keep your vehicle. I'm going to talk about your rights, what they can't do to you, and this will help you out. I haven't made a video on auto repossessions in a while, and what really caught my attention to make this video was I saw recent news report, January 2025, 6.56% of subprime auto borrowers whose credit scores are below 640 were at least 60 days past due on their loans, making the highest rate of delinquencies for subprime borrowers since 1994. Overall delinquencies, people even with good credit scores, good income, 3% of all car borrowers, that's a mixture, are at least about 90 days or more overdue, indicating that there's a broader trend of financial strain among individuals who own vehicles. Now, I wanted to look at what was going on in 1994. We always hear in these news reports like it hasn't been this bad since this date, and for subprime borrowers it was 1994. So what was going on in 1994 that made it so bad in 1994, and then what's going on now? So we could see, let's try to see the correlation. So in 1994, the Federal Reserve, they increased the interest rates from 3% to 5.5% in just 1 year. So that made the payments go up, especially for new subprime car buyers. Their monthly payments were going to be a lot higher than it was before. So if we were probably to look at the subprime auto buyers at the time, it was probably the newer car buyers who bought the cars with the higher interest rates. Also, there was a recession from 1990 to 1991, and it had a lingering effect with people who had lower incomes. I've talked about this from my business experience of owning a business in a lower income community versus what I see from owning a business in a higher income community. When the recessions hit the higher income communities, it's a crazy thing, and I've experienced this 4 different times. In the lower income communities, there's not a recession that hits. And then once stuff started to get better in the higher income communities, all of a sudden in the lower income communities, it seemed like there's a recession. So there's the correlation of when things are happening in one community doesn't correlate when it's happening in another community. It seems like it lags. And that's what had happened actually with subprime, is that if you look at it, the recession was mainly 1990, 1991. It was already starting to get better by 1994, but in 1994, remember what I just said, it was lagging. Things got worse before they got better, and it was getting better in the higher income and middle to income communities. The recession was over, but in 1994, the recession was hitting in the minority communities or the lower income community. I won't say minority, solely minority, just lower income communities were getting hit. And that's been my experience. And when I talk about that with people, they're like, what are you talking about? If it's a recession, it's a recession for everybody. No, it doesn't work that way when the way that it actually plays out. So It's going to hit the higher income, middle income first, and then it's going to hit the lower income communities last, and then it's going to get better in the higher and middle income communities first, and then it's going to get better in the lower income communities later. And then also in 1994, there was something that they call household debt and credit fatigue, where credit was a lot easier to get, and people had just overextended themselves, and they were working had to figure out ways to work their way out of that. And the crazy thing about it is, if you remember my story, what did I talk about happened to my wife and I in 1994? We had started our business in 1990, and in 1994 was when we were just what I would consider credit fatigue, where we just overextended ourselves with credit. This is crazy how this runs full circle, because 1994 was the year that my wife, Christmas of 1994, December 1994, was when we made that decision that we had to make changes with our debt. We had to start to get out of debt. We had to figure out solutions. And that gets us to what the topic of this video is, which is auto repossessions. Because in 1994, I had my first automobile repossessed. It was a white 240XX Nissan 240XX, XX, I believe it's XX, and it got repossessed. And during that repossession process, I learned a lot about what they can't do, and just the different things that you're able to do if you want to keep your vehicle. So, if you're behind on your payments and you received a repossession notice, you'll need to hear this. In this video, I'm going to break down your legal rights before your car is repossessed, what repossession agents can and can't do, what happens to your vehicle if it's sold at auction. So stay tuned. This information can help you save money and stress. So first thing is, before repossession, your rights and your options. You have a right to notice. It varies state by state, but some states require lenders to give you notice before repossessing your car. Others don't. So you got to look at what your state laws are. You also have a right to cure. In many states, you have a right to cure period, which gives you time, like 10 to 20 days, to bring the payments current and avoid repossession. You also have what's called loan reinstatement in some states. You have a right to reinstate the loan even after the repossession order is issued. Also, communications. If you're struggling, communicate with your lender in writing and over the phone to try to work out a plan or to delay. This was something that over time, with helping my customers, that I've found to be a key piece, that I've seen people who were able to keep their vehicle for upwards of a year and work out a deal, either a settlement to pay the car off for less, or to just get a different refinance loan and different payment arrangements to be able to afford to keep the vehicle. Because remember, the ultimate goal of the lender is not to be in the car selling business, not to be in the car repossession business. They're in the business of getting payments coming in, because that's how they make their money. So now, during the repossession period, what repossession agents can and cannot do? There's something that's called no breach of the peace. Now, I know that this is depending on your state, depending on who comes to pick up your vehicle, and depending on your local law enforcement departments, this could go, you got a 50-50 outcome on this. I've seen it go both ways, but there's something that's called breach of the peace. Repossession agents cannot break into locked garages. Now, they cannot do that. They cannot use force, they cannot threaten you, and they cannot cause a disturbance during the process of the repossession. They can take your car from your driveway, parking lot, or public area, even without you being there. Personal property inside of the car. They must return your personal belongings from inside of the car, usually upon request or notice given by you. No police escort in most cases. Police cannot help the repossession man or woman unless there is a court order. They can only keep the peace. If a repossession agent gets aggressive or trespasses into private property, that might be an illegal repossession. Document everything, video, or even write and give written notices, because this could be stuff to either show that they violated your rights and you could potentially get your car back, because you can use that repossession and show that evidence to the lender, and the lender may take the initiative to say, hey, we do not want to end up going to court over what this repossession agent did that we hired, because ultimately they could be responsible for what that repossession agent does that is illegal. And they may say, hey, let's just work out a deal and maybe let's just wash our hands of everything. You get the vehicle, get the title in some circumstances, but you got to get that evidence. If you don't get that evidence, there's not going to be anything for them to consider. The next thing, after your vehicle is repossessed, what should you expect? You must be notified. The lender must send you a written notice called a notice of intent to sell or similar. What it does is explains where the car is being held, because in some states you have a right to cure. You could actually refinance a loan and get the car in some instances. When and how long it will be before they sell it, if it's going to be a private sale or if it's going to be an auction sale. Also, real quick, I want to talk about an option that you have to also sell the vehicle. In most states you had this option too, where you could sell the vehicle, but if you're going to sell it yourself, you're going to have to get everyone on the same page. I'm actually working with a client right now where I have to get the bank's attorney on the bank through their attorney on the same page that they're going to release the vehicle when the funds are put into an escrow account with my company to show them that funds have been secured and they're not taking the word of the individual that they have the back and forth with, that they're secured in the escrow account and that they're going to release the title to the individual who is purchasing the vehicle from my client. But you have to get everybody on the same page. It takes a lot of work to get that done, but you can get that done. Some of the times you could get a release notice from the bank saying that if they are made whole, or maybe a settlement amount could be arranged before, they're going to want to have, you're going to want to have all of that in writing. So, but if it's coming from the lender, when and how the vehicle will be sold, if it's going to be sold at private auction or sold at a private sale, how much you owe, and how much and how to get the car back if you're going to redeem it or reinstate it. Your right to redeem, you can usually get the car back by paying it in full. Some of the times, and also there might be some repo fees and storage fees, but a lot of the times you can also do a settlement where they'll be like, hey, if you can pay us this certain amount, we'll give you the car back. But you got to have that amount. Like, you got to work. If you're going to do something like that, you got to make sure you got everybody on the same page. The next thing, if the car is sold at auction, this is what's going to happen. You're still going to be on the hook for the deficiency balance. If the car sells for less than what's owed, the lender can sue you for the difference, or they might sell it to a debt collector. Now, they must follow the auction rules. The sale must be commercially reasonable. They cannot sell the vehicle for dirt cheap without proper notice, and you may have a case if you feel that they just sold the car for any amount because they're just trying to just get rid of it. You might, in most instances, no, because what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, we sold it for blue book value, and this is the most that we're going to be able to get. Remember, they're not in the auto selling business. Now, something that I've seen happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but I've seen it happen, and it's crazy because you got to remember, we always say that it's business, not personal, but you will start to learn that it seems like some of the things that these lenders do seems to be personal, not what are personally pointing at you. It's where they're just like, if we're going to lose on these loans, we're going to make sure that we ramp up the fees, we ramp up the costs, attorney fees, and all of this type of stuff. And you could see some of the times where they've actually sold vehicles for either exactly what was owed on the debt, and they ballooned up the fees to be able to have something extra that they can get on top of it. Because some of the times people paid their vehicle down, and then all of a sudden when they went to go sell it, the vehicle was just worth more, maybe a certain type of vehicle. I remember a client, and I've talked about this before, a elderly woman came to my office, and her husband had bought a Cadillac, only had it a few months, and when they sold that vehicle, they all at auction, because she wasn't going to keep it, her husband had passed away, and the vehicle sold for almost what was owed. And really, when I really looked at the file, a lot of that was fees and late payments and stuff like that when she just had stopped making the payments on the vehicle, and for them to go and repossess the vehicle. So when your vehicle is sold, you have a right, and they are required to do this. They're supposed to give you a breakdown of the accounting of the vehicle being sold, all of the fees, everything that went into it, so you can get a true amount of what you potentially may owe on that vehicle for the deficiency or for the fees and all of that stuff. Because a lot of the fees and extra stuff, that stuff can really be negotiated out of the deficiency balance if you're prepared to deal with it that way. Or if they sell it to a debt collector and they don't get you that information, or you see something wrong with that auction statement, anything, you always need to review those documents, because you never know what you might see. And again, something that also comes to mind when you review your contract, you want to make sure that there was no credit insurance stuff that they could have potentially got paid for or reimbursed for because the debt went bad. You always want to look at that. So now, what you can do if your rights were violated, you can file a complaint with the consumer protection agencies with your states. You can talk to a consumer rights attorney. You can also get with my company, and you can have a lawsuit drawn up where you can represent yourself. And if it's drawn up the right way, a lot of these companies do not want to end up going into court, and they will offer a settlement. We just got one where we wrote up everything for a client. He was going against a Mercedes dealership where he felt that he was wrong, and what they ended up doing is they just paid him a settlement, not because of arbitration and stuff like that. They paid a settlement because the way that it was written up to show how he felt that he was wrong, there was probably a huge chance that if it went in front of a judge or went in front of a jury, even though this individual was not an attorney, the way that it was drawn up for him with the paperwork, they had a potential of losing that case. So you don't always need an attorney to go to court if you draw up your case in a way that the judge can understand it, in a way that a jury would be able to understand it, and you could just read from your documents. You also, if if everything is gone, vehicle repossessed, and you're just sitting there with the debt, you can dispute that negative information if it's inaccurate with what you got with that information from the sale of the vehicle, because you have a right to have the information 100% accurate on your credit reports. And if a debt collector buys your debt, obviously you want to have all of that information so you're able to fight that debt collector. And also, here's the trick to that, is that if a debt collector buys your debt, they're supposed to get you all of that information upon request with your debt validation request to them. And if they're not able to get that information, they don't even show proof. They don't even have proof to show that they have a right to even collect on that debt. So if you need help, you got a repo debt, and you are trying to get that information removed off your credit report, or they're coming after you for the deficiency balance, make sure that you get that information from either the original creditor from the sale at auction, or you do a debt validation to that debt collector, because they have to get you all of that information. If you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch a video what makes us different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website yourthenumber3scores.com. Grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports and all 3 scores. If you have debt collectors coming after you, grab my 3-pack of letters, statute of limitations, debt validation, and cease and desist collection activities letter. Or you can go to summersmaster.com, upload your debt validation letter right in there, and that can create a exclusive certified debt validation letter that all you got to do is sign and date it. Everything is done for you, so you can't mess it up. Go to summersmaster.com and you can get that prepared. All you have to do is dump that debt letter that the debt collector sent to you. Thank you for your time. Subscribe to the channel. Post your questions and comments. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and founder of thecreditrepairshop.com.